Hello again everyone and welcome back to another video from Old Frames Gaming. I'm your host BK and I just want to say thank you to all of our new and returning viewers. Your support of the channel is immeasurable and we're truly humbled. The weather's taken a turn and it's gotten colder in West Kentucky, leaving players no choice but to battle it out in the Alice format at Dragon's Den this past December. Alice is a player-created format that is composed entirely of cards from the Ice Age and Alliance's expansions. The only card banned in this format is an anti-card, Amulet of Quaz. You can check that one out later on, it's a wild one. Alice is a format known for being somewhat slower with creatures that aren't categorized as good by today's standards. That fact, however, is what gives this format its charm. This type of gameplay is full of nostalgia and fills a void that is largely left by what's happening in the current era of Magic. I, for one, love this format. It's quirky and incredibly unique among what I classify as the old school formats. Our round 2 competitors are Mark on his Lim-Dul's locker list versus me on Necropox. Let's do a couple of quick deck techs to check out what our players are up to for this meetup. First up is Mark's deck, Lim-Dul's Locker. It's a blue and black deck that utilizes controlling elements to maintain the board with the ultimate goal of getting Polar Kraken into play for a couple of turns, and that's generally about all it's going to take. With Portent and Brainstorm, Mark seeks to filter cards toward his endgame, using counterspells such as Force of Will and Power Sink along the way. Vexing Arcanus is also in the mix, a neat card from over 2 decades ago that offers a means of repeatable, colorless damage for mages hoping to stop Mark with Circles of Protection. Mark's sideboard has some additional controlling elements, particularly against red, white, and green mages. Hydra Blast, Stromgall, Cabal, and Dystopia are strong role players here. Binding Grasp can help Mark snag a creature and potentially end the game quickly. And another copy of Vexing Arcanix is here to supplement the lone main deck copy for even more damage-dealing effects. Dance of the Dead can steal a creature from an opposing player's graveyard or even help Mark sneak Polar Kraken into play, albeit with an easier way to untap it. And lastly, he's brought along a pair of Arcane Denial to add even more control elements for games 2 and 3 when needed. Next up is my mono black Necropox list that was inspired by others in the Alice Discord. I've always liked the card Necropotence, and given it's either banned or restricted in every other format out there, this seemed like a good opportunity to take it for a spin. The main deck is fairly straightforward. Keep your opponent's creatures and mana in check via Contagion, Pox, and Icequake, and then finish them off with efficient creatures such as Abyssal Spectre and Knight of Stromgall. Powered out by Dark Ritual, Necropotence keeps the party going by ensuring your hand is full at the beginning of each turn. Soulburn and Zurin Orb help keep your life total high so you can keep the pressure up, and Demonic Consultation helps you find any of the missing pieces. The sideboard brings in more controlling elements to deal with white and green decks via Stench of Evil, Dystopia, and Stromgall Cabal. Dark Banishing is somewhat of a catch-all answer when other removal just won't do the trick, and Withering Wisps offers a way to control the board as well as a win condition. Necropotence has always been a pretty solid deck, and I was happy to have the opportunity to play it. Again, I encourage everyone out there to give this format a try. It truly is a blast. Let's head on down to the tables and see our competitors at work. And as we join our players here in Game 1, I'm going to be on the left-hand side of your screen, and Mark will be on the right. Mark has won the die roll, so we have shuffled up and cut, and are now drawing our initial 7 cards. Both of us managed to keep our opening 7, and Mark is going to lead off momentarily. Looks like he's going to lead off on an island and pass over to me. So I'm going to draw a new card and find a snow-covered swamp. Thinking about that Dark Ritual, Mark's going to Brainstorm at the end of the turn. This format is interesting because Thawing Glaciers is a key component in most decks, not all, but it does offer you the ability to shuffle away cards put back with Brainstorm, similar to the way that fetch lands do, or exactly the same way that fetch lands do in modern Magic. So I pass the turn back to Mark, and he lands a swamp and says go. Looking at a new card, I kind of study my hand for a bit to decide what direction we're going to go here. Find a second swamp. So we're going to start on Dark Ritual. Into an Abyssal Spectre at 4 mana. So this is a 2/3 flyer, and every time it connects to your opponent, they have to discard a card of their choosing. And it doesn't appear that Mark has any way to interact with this on the stack. So Abyssal Spectre is likely going to remain in play. So I pass the turn to Mark, and he draws a fresh card off the top. And he finds a third land. And says go. I draw another card. We're going to come across into the red zone for 2 mana in the air. Sending Mark to 18, and he's going to discard a card. So Abyssal Spectre is somewhat of a quote-unquote fixed hypnotic spectre. The discard not being random. So after that attack, I end the turn, and Mark draws a new card. He finds land number 4. And he plays Vexing Arcanix. So this card's pretty neat. I'll let you look it up, and I'll see if I can remember from memory what this card does. I believe you name a card. You target someone and name a card, or they have to name a card off the top of their library. If it is the chosen card, they put it in their hand. If it's not, they put it in their graveyard and take 2 damage. Something like that. It's pretty neat. I kind of liken it to Cursed Scroll in pre-modern. So switching turns here, I come across with Abyssal Spectre again. Sending Mark to 16. He discards another Lim-Dul's Vault. And I find a Knight of Stromgold to add to my little growing army here. Mark finds a 5th land, and he passes the turn. So we're going to come across for 4 here. That's going to put Mark down to 12. He discards Power Sink, and I find a 5th land, and I pass the turn. Mark looking for an answer. I believe this card is Winter's Chill. It's a strange card. It has some kind of effect on it, I believe, where you have to pay mana, or your creatures get sacrificed or something like that when they attack. It's a really strange card. Alright, so we're going to soul burn for a lot. Okay, so that wasn't Winter's Chill. It was some kind of creature. I just don't recognize the art. If you're out there watching in the comments, please let us know. So Mark takes another 4 damage from creatures in the red zone. He has no cards in hand at this point. Looks like he has drawn Latnam's Legacy. He passes the turn. I untap and find a new one off the top. I add 1 black mana to my mana pool and then play this Lake of the Dead. Sacrifice for another 4. So that puts 5 mana in my mana pool. +3. And so that's enough damage to pump that knight up to get there and deal the final 8 damage to Mark to end game 1. So we didn't even see Necropotence in that game 1, but it ended up okay for us. Unfortunately, Mark didn't draw much action, but we're going to give these players an opportunity to sideboard, and we'll catch up with them in game 2 and see how it goes. Okay, and here we are in game 2. I'm going to start on a mulligan to 6 cards. Mark is going to lead off with Thawing Glaciers and pass the turn. I open up on Swamp into Dark Ritual, and I'm going to go ahead and Ice Quake that thing because Thawing Glaciers is integral to a lot of decks in this format. And Mark just finds another one. But a little bit of land destruction is fairly normal for most decks just to deal with the opposing Thawing Glaciers. Or things like Keldern Outpost, Soldevi Excavations, some of those special lands that are in this format. Lake of the Dead that I am playing is another one. Alright, so 3 mana, we found another Ice Quake. We're going to go ahead and target that Thawing Glaciers, which that's going to hit the graveyard here in a little bit. I'm not sure why Mark put the island in there, because I'm almost certain that I targeted the Thawing Glaciers. Either way, Mark's found another land, so he puts a snow-covered swamp into play. So he's going to return that at the end of the turn. Maybe I did target the island, just as a means to try and slow him down a little bit. Alright, so Mark replays the island rather than the Thawing Glaciers, and he plays a Portent. So he's looking to filter some cards here. Looks like he's found a Lim-Dul's Vault, a Force of Will, and some other unknown that I did not see. Oh, Mark did go to 19 life, so yes, I did in fact target that island because it was a snow-covered island and it deals 1 damage if the land is snow-covered. The Ice Quake, that is. Alright, so I'm going to play a Demonic Consultation, and Mark quickly Force of Wills that. Going to 18, and I pass the turn. I was going to go for Necropotence here, but did not make it. We did find a 4th land, though, and I saw I play the Swamp and pass back to Mark. Not really seeing much action so far in this game, but this is the nature of this format, a lot of the time anyway. So Mark's going to go ahead and activate Thawing Glaciers. He finds another snow-covered swamp, and he's going to put the Glaciers back in his hand at the end of the turn. Mark making sure that everything is shuffled up and sufficiently randomized to his liking. So he's going to untap and take his turn now. Looks like he's found a Dance of the Dead. So he replays the Glaciers. Going to keep searching out those lands. And he says go. I find another land and say go myself. So Mark's going to brainstorm on the end of the turn. Take a look at 3 new cards. Put a couple back. So Mark redraws one of his cards, and he plays another land and says go. He's working toward that 11 mana for that Polar Kraken. I find a Knight of Stromgald to add to the board to at least put some pressure on. And Mark's going to play a Power Sink. So he's going to attempt to counterspell this. And I'm going to answer that with a Dark Ritual and pay the requisite mana so that I can keep that on board. Because at this point, Mark has no creatures to block with. So my thinking is, why not go ahead and keep this on the board? So passing the turn, Mark finds another land. So he's up to 6 with the possibility of going to 7 with the Thawing Glaciers. So still a few turns off of that Polar Kraken. And here comes Knight of Stromgald into the red zone. It's going to send Mark down to 16. And I find 4 mana for an Abyssal Spectre to add to the board presence. Mark is going to play Lim-Dul's Vault in response. And he is going to seek to order the top cards of his library, the top 5. So he's looking for a way to answer this. And Mark studies here for a little bit, then opts to pay another life. You can do this as many times as you want until you run out of life, obviously. But at the end of it, what you wind up doing is shuffling your library and then putting the last 5 cards that you looked at in any order back on top. So Mark's just trying to find 5 cards that he is happy with keeping, that he is satisfied will help him moving forward. See a Force of Will and a Brainstorm among those 5. So he's found some that he's happy with. He's going to shuffle up here and then reorder those cards and put them on top. Then it should be Mark's turn right after that. He's just double and triple checking here to make sure he has the order he wants. So Lim-Dul's Vault has resolved. And now it's going to be Mark's turn. Pretty neat card. I own a few. Haven't managed to put them in a deck yet, but maybe one of these days. So Mark finds the 7th land of the game. He's working with a lot. And I believe he was checking the Oracle text on a card here. And Mark says go. So we untap and take a look at a new card off the top of our library. We got 4 power on the field. Mark's at 14. So we're going to come across. Okay, and this is that card, that strange card that I thought it was from the first game, where you have to pay so much mana to keep from having to sacrifice the creatures or getting them destroyed, and so much more. You can pay like 1 mana to do one thing and 2 mana to make sure that they're not destroyed and they still deal combat damage. So I believe that's correct. I just don't remember the name of the card. So many of the cards in this format are really, really obscure. So I go ahead and pay the 4 mana for both of them so that they do not get destroyed and that they do, in fact, go ahead and deal combat damage. So Mark goes to 10 life. And again, if you're out there watching this and you know what card that is off the top of your head, please feel free to drop a comment in the video below. Alright, so going to 10, Mark takes his turn, draws a new one. And he adds a black and a blue, and looks like we're going to Lim-Dul's Vault again. So he's going to go and start taking a look at 5 cards at a time until he finds something that he's happy with. Here he goes to 9, not happy with the first 5. Not happy with the second 5, going to 8. Now he's studying this third 5. So maybe he's found some that he's happy with at this point. Nope. Another 5. Gonna go to 6. Still hasn't found it. And it's not looking like he's going to make it there, but I do show Mark that I probably had this wrapped up on the next turn. Even though he had a force of will, probably would have been able to get there through some combination of the Pump Knight as well as the Soul Burn and the Lake of the Dead. Again, everybody, check out this format. I think it's a lot of fun. It's unique. The cards are obscure and weird, and that is part of the charm. If you are interested in old school content, we would recommend you head on over to the Orb and see what Joe Singer's got going on. He is always featuring some variation on the old school format, and I'm sure you will have a laugh with Joe. He does a great job. If you are interested in more content like this, please like and subscribe. It costs nothing, and it helps boost our viewership. We will catch up with you in the next video. Thanks for joining in, everybody.